Сколько можно, блядь? Сколько можно? Ёб твою мать, блядь. Ясно, блядь. Твою мать, блядь.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his... Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But when Stanley came to a set of 2
О, а
open
чё за
doors,
хуйня?
he entered the door and this was not
А,
the
здесь
correct way
нет
to the
такой
meeting
кнопки,
room,
да, еще
and
в
Stanley
этой
knew it
части.
perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted
Ну
to stop
ладно.
by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Stanley had now gotten himself so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. You didn't think I was actually just a recording, did you? What a silly and trite explanation that would be. All the back and forth between you and me, all the absurd adventures we've been through, and it all turns out I'm just a tape recording? It was all just in Stanley's head. I bet that's the kind of twist you think is revelatory. I bet each and every time you watch a movie where it turns out all to be in the main character's imagination, you must absolutely bolt off the couch in pure shock at the phenomenal and intricate storytelling. It must be so simple to be you. Life being an unending waterfall of surprises and delights. How much more exciting you must find the world than the rest of us do. Now I've become sad. Look what you've done to me. This is all your fault. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Oh, new content? What does that mean? New content.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was
Лучше
expanded
пиксельный,
in
да.
2022
Это
with the
новодел
Stanley Parable
капитана.
Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside.
Заебал меня этот капитан уже нахуй. Невозможно. Я его никогда, короче, не пройду. Ой, блядь. Так и останусь я, блядь, на лоховском 6-м месте, блядь. Увы.
Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Секретная игра, которая открывается путь. Ну, конечно. А как же? Там, когда босса финального мочишь, нужно 3 раза нажать старт. Влево, лево, право, право, лево, Б, Б, вверх, лево, право. И все. И открывается вот такой вот локейшн.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if them... Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley. All right. All right, let's see. It's... the jump circle? Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content.
Не проходил, да? Ну вот.
Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And if...
Чё, как у тебя, кстати, там игра твоя поживает? Вот я недавно вспоминал. Ты собираешься ее доделывать?
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason.
Игру свою.
And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that
Ты же там игру делал
до
отпуска.
It's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time
Кот, ты ни
together.
хера не понял, бля.
What do you say, friend?
Минут на 10 отошел. Давай. Ты не шутишь.
Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something. Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley... And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim. It was Persona 3. It was all of them. And now, it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content. Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories. These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Sure, these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they? Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny? I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them. Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley, I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I do anything for the company, and here it is. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of... Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45... Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about... But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed. The end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
Я тут сплю, если честно. Я просто закрыл глаза и сижу, блядь, сплю. Потому что меня прям рубят, блядь.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you. You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2. Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. Oh goodness, Stanley, this is very awkward. I hate to do this. No? You're just going to ignore my advice? Fine. No fun new content for you then. You're the one who spent money on this game. So Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent
Здорово,
video
Болеслав.
game,
Да,
but I
предположим.
feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together
Спать хочу. Дико. Поэтому я, наверное, недолго еще посижу и, блядь. Да, конечно, налаживаться. Она только по пизде вся идет, блядь. Этими посиделками, блядь.
In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different...
Да как сказать, готовлюсь? Вот, сижу, играю. Вот и вся готовка. Подготовка.
Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything.
А у тебя же планы
I
там
wanted more than anything to create
огромные
a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first
перед
game.
8
I
марта.
wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it.
А, уже
This,
купил?
of course, with
А,
respect,
тебе
with care for the visual
хорошо.
integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could, but it would need a really,
Ты
really
молодец, Вишка.
tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold,
Ой, блядь, я
uncompromising
случайно, я не хотел
conviction,
этого делать.
This is the Stanley Parable 2.
Не хотел прыгать.
Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the... Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why... I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful.
Это пиздос, это очень много.
What could it mean? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his
Перезапусков
left.
было.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Ano-
Да, в этот раз рандом супер хуёвый.
What could it mean?
Прям максимально
Stanley came to a set
отвратительный.
of two open doors. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's. You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and Marines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music. Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway. And there... Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines, those Figlers. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life? Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time. Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley. And here was a second Stanlerine. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around by the red and blue doors. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest. Back then, I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways. Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini Stan? Can you remember?
Тысячи.
And then there was no more. Because we've caught up
Да,
to
типа
the
того.
present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Видишь, у кого-то на утро черепаха выходит, а у меня out of bounds.
I'm not ready to move on.
Out of
Stop the
bounds.
loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying
Но
these
сейчас может быть
figurines?
подвох, но
Let's
я
just
надеюсь,
go
что не будет
backwards.
подвоха
We'll
никакого.
do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels. Okay, yes, the back of the boss's office. I remember this. I must say, of all the
Спасибо.
figurines we looked at in our initial tour
Очень
of the memory
приятно.
zone, this one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going. I want more. This one, and here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched? Yes, I love that video. Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room. Let's see.
Ну как сказать, вроде как это все по фикшена, просто есть версии. Это старая версия, поэтому в новой это не работает уже. Поэтому спидранится именно эта версия.
This was our second Figley. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever? This is it. The
это да.
first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figurines. Oh, I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else is there? What
Конечно,
came
такие
before
приколы
this?
нет.
Look,
Это ж
what's
всё
the
баги.
terrible new content that we were originally sold on?
И использование
I remember
порталов.
hating it back then, but time does. Oh yes, the two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one. And before everything else, there was your office. Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember.
Почему выглядит как баг?
Yes.
Нормально выглядит.
Something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision.
Да-да-да, тут очень много всяких приколюх. Тут много всяких историй. Ну, не то чтобы истории, но да. Просто надо с самого начала начинать, просто играть во всякие разные. Это задумано спидраном. То есть я выполняю некоторые действия, которые мне сейчас позволяют что-то, видимо, скипнуть и сразу пойти в эпилог, который нам нужен.
из Одессы на 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 на.
Вот тут соглы. Вот он эпилог. Появился вдруг из ниоткуда. Бля, ну я надеюсь, что я хотя бы на третье сейчас залечу, потому что у меня получился этот скип. Еще и с первого раза прям. Еще и я там даже не шурудил туда-сюда. Рандом у меня очень плохой, конечно, был. Ну ладно. Я надеюсь, что сейчас хотя бы третий я отожму. Уже пора бы. Да? Да тут его нету, блядь. Хотя бы 35-30, слушай, сделать было бы охуенно. Бля, я, по-моему, хуёво выбрал, слушай. Тут еще надо знать, что выбирать в конце. Слушай, ну 35-44. Нормально. Неплохо. На третье я точно залетел.